Hi, Sid Dobrin here with Inventive Fishing, and I've been thinking. Well, I've been thinking more about the situation in Biscayne National Park, and the National Park Service's recently released new general management plan, which established a no-fishing marine zone that bans recreational fishing from more than 10,000 acres of the park waters, and that includes 30% of that reef area. Now, what's really frustrating about this situation isn't just the unabashed lockout of recreational anglers, which is infuriating in its own, but it's also the National Park Service's refusal to work with Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission to develop a science-based conservation plan for the park's marine waters. I mean, let's think about the logic here. FWC is the primary management agency for saltwater fisheries in the state. They're staffed with experts who understand local water needs, local community and business concerns, and have a ton of experience negotiating between conservation and community needs. But for whatever reason, the National Park Service decided that it didn't need FWC's expertise when rendering policy decisions about Biscayne National Park, which, despite being a national park, is first and foremost a Florida marine environment. As you might imagine, I'm not the only angler in Florida upset by this kind of heavy-handed management practice, nor am I the only angler in the country upset by this. But I'll come back to the national interest in a minute. According to the Morris Deal Commission report, we have just under 5 million licensed saltwater anglers in Florida. That's nearly 45% of the 11 million saltwater anglers across the United States. And you better believe there's more than a handful of Florida anglers who see the National Park Service's closure as both ill-conceived and an inappropriate targeting of saltwater anglers. Now, thankfully, among those millions of anglers, we have allies who are willing to do the work it takes to challenge the Park Service's authority within Biscayne Bay and initiate productive conversations about the issue. Among these, the Saltwater Nation ought to be offering all of our support and gratitude to Congresswoman Ileana Rousley-Tenon from Florida's 27th District. At the end of last week, Congresswoman Rousley-Tenon introduced a bill entitled Preserving Public Access to Public Waters. Now, this bill is remarkable in its simplicity and the impact it can have. So here's the entire bill. The Secretary of the Interior and the Secretary of Commerce shall not restrict recreational or commercial fishing access to any state or territorial marine waters or Great Lakes waters within the jurisdiction of the National Park Service or the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, respectively, unless those restrictions are developed in coordination with and approved by the Fish and Wildlife Management Agency of the state or territory that has fishery management authority over those waters. One sentence. One clear, to-the-point sentence that not only inherently addresses the Biscayne closure situation, but that brings to the fore two crucial legislative issues. First, that closures are not just a Biscayne issue, but an issue for the entire country. And second, and perhaps most telling, that local knowledge and local expertise must not only be consulted in the development of restrictive policy, but that local agencies should have approval rights when policies stand to lock out local populations. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than this. This is just common sense at its most vivid. Could you imagine a bioethics board issuing policy decisions about bioethical practices without the consultation of medical and ethics experts in that field? It would be ludicrous to think of making policy decisions without expert input in just about any field. Yet it took the Biscayne closure to push us to a point where we actually need someone with as much savvy and legislative know-how as Rousley-Tenon to remind us in one sentence why we need common sense in fisheries management. Tenon issued a statement when the bill was introduced that I think is rather important too. Tenon says, "We all have a stake in the protection of Biscayne National Park's natural resources and the preservation of vital economic and recreational opportunities that depend on Biscayne's beauty and bounty. Over the past 15 years, I have prodded the National Park Service to increase their outreach and work together with all stakeholders in the process of developing a new general management plan. However, the stubborn and unsupported inclusion of a no-fishing zone in the park's final proposal seems to be the result of a process that treats collaboration like a checkbox on a form rather than as a serious dialogue between partners. That's not right, and we should demand better from our federal government. It is especially important to me that we reconnect South Floridians with the natural lands and waters that surround and support our community, and that means giving folks as many opportunities as possible to enjoy and thrive alongside the watery wonderland of Biscayne National Park. I look forward to working with my colleagues to pass the Preserving Public Access to Public Waters Act and to continue strengthening the ties that bind local communities to their public lands and waters." Notice that she starts by saying, "we all." She's not just talking to Floridians or Floridian anglers or even just anglers. She's reminding us that when agencies like the National Park Service begin to issue restrictive policies without appropriate consultation, those policies will inevitably affect how those same agencies and other agencies understand their ability to act. Policy that is put in place in Biscayne Bay will influence and feed policies in every other region in the United States. This is why I say the Biscayne closure is not a local fishing issue. It's a national fishing issue. And Tenon smartly reminds us of this and proposes a bill that has national implications, not just local implications. Now, what's great about this, too, is that Tenon has bipartisan support from 30 other House of Representative colleagues who have co-sponsored H.R. 3310. The bill is in its early stages and has just been assigned for review with the House Committee on Natural Resources before it can be approved for a House vote. So we'll keep an eye on this bill's progression. In the meantime, two other relevant pieces of information. On Monday, August 3rd, the House Committee on Natural Resources and the House Committee on Small Business will hold a joint oversight hearing titled "Restricted Access at Biscayne National Park and Implications for Fishermen, Small Businesses, the Local Economy and Environment." I'll be interested to see the transcript from this hearing, as it will likely have direct implications on how H.R. 3310 is discussed. Likewise, I think it's important, too, to note that soon after the announcement about the Preserving Public Access to Public Waters Act, Nick Wiley, the Executive Director of Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, made public a letter he wrote in support of the act. Now, I won't read you the whole letter because I've already been rambling way too long. If you want to read it, you can find a copy of it on the Inventive Fishing webpage post about this bill. But I do want to point out this one important paragraph from Wiley. Wiley says, "The National Park Service admits park staff work with the state of Florida to promote regulations that ensure the long-term sustainability of fisheries. FWC is grateful to have partnered with NPS on development of many of the fishing-related policies for Biscayne National Park. However, the FWC's and the NPS's philosophies differ with respect to when fishery closures should be implemented. FWC believes the natural resources managed by the NPS, such as all the other resources in this great nation, belong to the people of the United States of America, and that the people should not be denied access to their resource unless extreme circumstances dictate that no other reasonable option will accomplish the goals of an appropriate management plan." Therefore, FWC believes that fishery closures are a tool of last resort that should not only be used when all other management measures have been tried and failed. FWC does not believe that Biscayne National Park has adequately considered or attempted less restrictive management measures that could be used to reach NPS's goals. While NPS's own motto is Experience Your America, it has expressed its intent to close a 10,000 plus acre area to fishing within Biscayne National Park before any of the intended actions detailed in the recently finalized fisheries management plan have ever even been implemented. So thank you to Congresswoman Rossley Tenon for taking the initiative to put forward this bill. And thank you too to the 30 other congressmen and women who have signed on as co-sponsors of the bill. Thank you to Nick Wiley and everyone at FWC. And now the rest of us, all 11 million of us, need to exercise our strength as a voting bloc and begin voicing our support for H.R. 3310 to be recommended for House vote and voicing our support for the passage of the bill into law. So call, write, email the 44 representatives who serve on the Committee on Natural Resources and voice your support for H.R. 3310. Call, write, email the representatives from your district and let your representative know that you are one of the 11 million saltwater anglers in the United States and that you vote in his or her district and you urge him or her to support H.R. 3310 when it makes it to House vote. Oh, and one other thing. Like this damn video, share this video, spread the word. Fish on. Can't.